So our next guest says that the AI economy is subject to a massive vulnerability, and that is the ocean, writing that the subsea cables that channel the two elements foundational of the AI economy, data and power, face ever-increasing dangers. Joining us right now to talk about it, Jared Cohen is the president of global affairs at Goldman Sachs, co-head of Goldman Sachs Global Institute, is also a former CEO of Google's Jigsaw. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
This one actually surprised me because I hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about cables under the ocean and the ocean being a problem for AI. So explain it.
Well, I'm surprised you don't spend your time thinking about undersea cables, Andrew. Look, for all the talk about AI infrastructure and global trade, 80% of trade moves across the ocean, and 95% of data flows underneath the ocean across 750,000 miles of undersea cables. So to put that in perspective, that's enough to go around the Earth 30 different times. So that's instant messaging. That is $10 trillion of daily financial transactions, offshore power, and of course, national secrets. You have 150 different cable breaks already every single year. But the geopolitical tensions and state-sponsored as well as non-state-sponsored breaking of cables is going to increase the scale and ferocity and frequency of these attacks.
So who is breaking the cables, do we think?
Well, so I'll give you a couple examples. So this past November, a Chinese vessel dragged one of its anchors 100 miles in the Baltic Sea, severing a cable between Sweden and Lithuania that also connected Finland and Germany.
And you believe they did this on purpose or by accident?
I mean, it would be quite a coincidence to drag an anchor 100 miles, and then just a month later, a Russian vessel, as part of the sort of Russian ghost fleet, did a similar action that severed a cable that connected Finland from Estonia, and it actually had to get seized by Finnish authorities.
This all seems to be to benefit Elon Musk in the end, right? Wouldn't you just want to go to the skies?
So so the question of can satellite technology kind of offer an alternative? It's a logical place to jump. The technology is not there yet. The latency, would still be an issue. So yes, we may end up there, but for the time being, we're still going to rely on a technology that was first laid in the ocean in the 1850s.
You lay new cable when that happens? You don't go to. You can't fix the cable.
No, you can fix the cable.
How far down is it?
Well, and so it can go down as far as 5 miles.
But so what happens? Divers go down there? How does this work?
No,
so you have. So it's actually very interesting. The multilateral architecture for fixing these cables was set before this heightened tech competition between the U.S. and China.
Could you pull both sides up and fix it?
Well, so the ocean's divided up into different zones. So if a U.S.-owned cable breaks in a China zone, then it's a Chinese maintenance ship that deals with the repairs of the cables, right? And so, the whole architecture.
But that worries me because then aren't the Chinese putting some bug on the cable when they're down there?
And we've had instances where Chinese repair vessels have been seen secretly hiding off the coast of Taiwan or off the coast of Philippines.
So, in terms of from an investment perspective, is there any play, if you will, for either an individual or for a business in this sort of infrastructure situation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, so right now you have 3 companies. You have Subcom, which is a U.S. company, NEC, which is a Japanese company, and Alcatel, which is a French company that have 87% of the market share. Then HMN Tech, which is a Chinese company that divested from Huawei, is sort of a distant fourth. But what's interesting is you're seeing a growing trend where hyperscalers are joining with telecom companies to form these consortiums that are owning and operating and investing in these undersea cables. So Google, as an example, is either a part or full owner of 33 different undersea cables.
So you could be investing, but is there a lot of money to be made on the cables themselves?
Look, it's a piece of the overall AI ecosystem. I would be surprised if venture capitalists are going to rush to pump money into undersea cables. I think there's a lot of First of all, they're very capital intensive. It costs between $40,000 to $60,000 per kilometer, and the geopolitics mean that you also have to kind of circumvent places like the South China Sea and go to the Java Sea. And so the barriers of entry are pretty high. So from an investment perspective, it's really kind of the incumbents that are playing in this space.
The diameter is not big at all.
An undersea cable is made up of wires that are as thin as a lock of your hair.
Garden hose. Right. I thought it would be. Yeah, that's amazing. So that's amazing.
So my other question, though, relates to whoever is winning in the LLM world, the large language models. Does that matter? Meaning, we've been having debates about DeepSeek versus OpenAI versus. I assume people will just port whatever the actual tech is, and it will live as close to you as humanly possible, or no?
Well, look, I mean, part of what we're seeing is the technological trends that are separating inference from training. They're unlocking new geographies, certain things that you can do far away, certain things that still have to be close. I think right now we're still in this kind of perception game where it feels like every day there's sort of a new big announcement, and it can be a big infrastructure announcement, it can be a new model,
right.
And everyone has to react, whether it's the markets or competitors, to their perception of what was launched faster than they can actually understand it.
Okay, so let's just go back. We were just having this conversation with Dan Yergin about DeepSeek, and if you actually do find a more efficient and effective way of doing this, maybe it uses less energy, that changes the energy outline. We'd been thinking for a while that energy was going to be the limiting factor on some of these things, or chips. What is the limiting factor when you look at all these things?
Look, we're seeing cascading bottlenecks. So first we thought the bottleneck was semiconductors, then we thought the bottleneck was data, then we thought the bottleneck was power. If you look in the U.S., we've talked about this on this show before, I think the bottleneck is a lack of powered land and a lack of differentiated data centers that can carry AI workloads.
By the way, your thesis around data centers, which obviously has been like the hot investment in real estate land and whatever for the last 2 or 3 years, overbuilt, mistake?
Well, Microsoft canceling some of these.
Right. I mean, I think there's a big question about that now.
Well, so if you look at Microsoft's announcement, and look, let's take Satya at his word on this. There's a lot of debate about whether or not there's a concern with regards to overbuild and whether there's going to be a pullback. I think what Microsoft is doing is, they're sending a very clear signal that they're investing heavily in AI infrastructure, but they want it tied to clear, predictable sources of revenue, which is why they're focused on infrastructure in service of inference.